Ladies and gentlemen, we want you to stand and we want you to make some noise.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go racing here at Knoxville.
Only the best go 3 abreast.
It is show time at Williams Grove Speedway.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here at Eldora Speedway, it's showtime!
You got them for a rep. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
It's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy because, ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime!
Set to do battle for 30 laps. The green flag is waving.
Hello again, it's Wing Nation presented by Drydene, DRF Racing Oils, and by Hercules Tires. So glad you joined us talking sprint car racing. Erin, Evernham, and Steve Post here on our podcast. And Erin, every day brings new hope, new sight, new stipulations. I am telling you, crazy times we live in here in the sprint car world, that's for sure.
It really is, but I think, each weekend we're seeing more and more races happening, successful races, people doing things right. And I think that this all-star kickoff is awesome. I mean, 10 races in 17 days, but they do 8 and 11 days. I mean, they're jumping right in the deep end, and I love it.
I do too. I really do. Was talking about this earlier this week. Speed weeks are such a big part of sprint car racing. Okay. Ohio Speed Week, Indiana Midget Week or Sprint Week, Pennsylvania Speed Week, California even did one last year. Pete Walton has one about 3 or 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 times, 12 times a year. Pete Walton will run a speed week. He ain't scared to do that. But speed weeks are such an important part. And what I find fascinating in the big picture racing in America, I think NASCAR is learning about speed weeks. And granted, it's not Cup Series every night. It's trucks, it's Xfinity and everything like that. Here's the other thing I'm noticing. I think a lot of people in NASCAR are liking the idea of Speed Week as well. The fans are have really followed along with all the races this week at Charlotte. It's been kind of neat.
It is neat. I mean, I agreed with a lot of the social media I saw. People loved that Wednesday night race at Darlington. Yeah. Nowadays in our lives, there's so much we can be doing on a weekend that we don't always want to sit home and watch a race. But on a Wednesday night, most likely you're home. And it's a great time to sit down and watch a race. I personally loved a midweek race.
Yeah, boy, we're getting a bunch of them, that's for sure. In NASCAR, the All-Stars are getting ready for a bunch of them for sure, and all kinds of stuff. Of course, we're dealing with the COVID-19 and America's response to COVID-19, and this emergency has brought out the best in a lot of people, including many in Ford Motor Company's workforce. These dedicated, innovative people quickly shifted gears to develop and produce urgently needed medical supplies. New powered air purifying respirators, more than 400,000 reusable surgical gowns, and more than 1.5 million face shields each week. Erin, they've been busy up at Ford, not only building cars because they're back doing that, but also with response to the COVID-19 crisis.
They sure are. And these life-saving supplies are being shipped to communities and frontline healthcare workers across America. This rapid response by Ford people is helping to beat COVID-19. Thanks to their commitment, expertise, and ingenuity. Sounds a lot like what it takes to win a race, doesn't it?
Certainly does. Ford, they certainly know what they're doing on that. And talking about the NASCAR Speed Week, they're picking up some wins along the way in NASCAR racing, that is for sure. Speaking of wins and races, the World of Outlaws, they were at it last week at Pevely. Johnny Gibson back at the racetrack, Dirt Vision there with all of the pay-per-view action. Here it is, our Drydene Diesel All Death-Defying Move of the Week.
And now for the Drydene Death-Defying Move of the Week, where one driver simply amazes us with their on-track moves.
We've got traffic, and we'll have 5 to go. When they come back to the line, Larson look to the inside, goes down low and steals the lead. Kyle Larson leads with 5 to go. Sweet right back to his inside. Brad Sweet takes the lead back.
That death-defying move was brought to you by Drydene Diesel All Death, the official DEF of the World of Outlaws and wheelmen everywhere. Visit Drydene.com for more information.
Pride. Passion.
Performance.
We are.
We are We are Team Drydene.
Hey, Ashley, what are you up to?
Oh, I just stopped by to grab some sage fruit apples. Now I just have to decide which ones.
You can never go wrong with a Honeycrisp. They're light, crisp, and full of perfectly balanced flavor.
Oh, hey.
You could always go with one of their classics, the Gala or Fuji. They're both sweet and juicy. Grown in the heart of Eastern Washington, Sage Fruit Company works hard on the farm and with their retail partners to provide high-quality apples and pears to consumers all year long.
Well, I couldn't decide which ones. Thanks for the help, guys.
I'll race you to checkout.
Wing Nation rolling along here on wingnation.com. Blake Anderson going to join us in just a few moments. You know, just like racing components, Aggressive Hydraulics purpose builds hydraulic cylinders to perform for customer-specific applications. Design and manufacture of mobile-style single-stage cylinders as well as multi-stage telescopic cylinders. Erin, no one-size-fits-all is the approach from Aggressive Hydraulics.
Absolutely. Hydraulic solutions for virtually every industry that uses hydraulic cylinders. They proudly design and manufacture all cylinders in the United States. You can check out a video of their story at aggressivehydraulics.com. And they're a proud sponsor of Ryan Newman at the Chili Bowl and all his short track racing.
All right, let's go right back to us. Joining us from a highway near you, Blake Anderson, the voice of the, let's see, what is it? It's the Ollie's Bargain Outlet, All-Star Circuit of Champions. What's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, I'm great. It's nice, as you said, out on the road. We're heading to South Dakota right now. I'm in Bloomington, Illinois. Stopped at Dirt on Dirt and Flow headquarters to pick up some stuff for our broadcast, and back on the road here after this.
Good times, good times.
You went from pretty down time here with this whole COVID-19, but you and the All-Stars are jumping right back into it, right in the deep end. I mean, how many, you got 10 races in 17 days? Is that what it is?
Yep, 10 races in 17 days in 4 or 5 states. So it's like, you're right. We are going from trying to tread water in the shallow water to diving into the deep end pretty quick.
Blake, I want to talk about the busy portion coming up here, but during this down period, we've seen you with Flow Racing have jumped into the podcast world, and some of the stuff that you're doing is just wonderful, good stuff. What else you been working on? What's been going on in your world while we've sat around watching the world go by?
A lot of trying to dig back and record more of our All-Star history and trying to figure out, I don't know, I'm kind of a stats nerd. I'm a geek. I mean, I was the guy that growing up, baseball cards, I was flipping the baseball cards over and reading stats and reading about guys and learning. But I really wanted to track down and see who's got top fives and heat wins and quick time. So we really got our database updated there, and we're digging back. And I'm getting to the point where it's getting hard to track races down. I talked to Bill Wright at the Hall of Fame, and I said, I'm going to have to come this winter and spend time digging through Speed Sport and all those old newspapers to try to find the rest of our history dating back through the 90s and maybe into the 80s.
That's awesome. I love that kind of stuff. During this break, Blake, how much have you been a part or in contact with everyone else with the All-Stars about the cancellations, the rescheduling? You know, from our perspective, it's been so interesting to try to keep track of when are people opening up, what races are really going to happen. But were you involved in any part of that chaos?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, with us, it's kind of difficult with our series, or we're in more of a unique spot because my boss, Jared Frood, his office is SHR in Charlotte. Our operations director, Ross Paulson, it's our scorer. He's in Fremont, Ohio. Eric Walls, our series director, and our office is at TSR in Brownsburg, Indiana. But we'd have conference calls once or twice a week, kind of updating. And Ross was working around the clock. I mean, we got 9 races, 10 races here. And I bet Ross in the last 3 weeks has talked to 40 or 50 racetracks across the country trying to line dates up. And we got 10 races out of it. So it's been a process to get to some of these states the All-Stars either haven't gone to in 20 years or have never gone to, and trying to get these racetracks on board that some of them don't hold these big events. So when they see a $35,000 price tag, it's kind of like, whoa, they kind of have to step back. But then when you break down the numbers for them, it makes sense for them a little bit more, and it's a good opportunity to kind of put some smaller racetracks on the map and look at a track like Park Jefferson. I mean, a lot of people maybe hadn't heard of Park Jefferson. Beautiful facility in North Sioux City, South Dakota, that now has kind of been the focal point of sprint car racing the last month since Terry put his race there a month ago.
Yeah, it is. It's really exciting. It's kind of a neat time. I mean, it's obviously a downtime, and obviously the illness is terrible, but we're finding all kinds of new things out and finding all kinds of exciting things as well. The All-Stars, talking about them now, I mean, they've done a little Western tour here recently with some of the Dakotas a couple years ago and out to Knoxville now. But have the All-Stars that you're aware of, have they ever gone south, like down into Texas, Louisiana, or is this somewhat new territory?
Texas, we've gone to twice. I think it was like 1991 and 2004. They did some co-sanctioned stuff with the Outlaws. But Louisiana, we've never had a race in Louisiana. Oklahoma, it's been a while since we've been to Oklahoma. I was trying to think like early 2000s again. So, I mean, it's been 20 years since we've hit a lot of these states.
Nice.
That's crazy. Like looking at the All-Stars, you guys haven't really run any points races this year, which to me is crazy.
Nope.
I know you guys ran some races in Florida, but they weren't points races. But you got Dietrich now signed up. You've got Zierfoss. You got Sam Haferteef. Obviously, Reitzel, Eliason. I mean, you guys have some serious competition these days.
I was kind of looking back and digging, and I mean, you guys obviously are familiar with this. I think this is the best lineup the All-Stars have had since the 90s. When you look, through the mid-90s, it was kind of a slew of Hall of Famers that ran with the All-Stars week in and week out. But man, it's just, we've got literally, you look 1 through 11 in our lineup, and every one of those drivers is going to compete to win races this year. And a lot of them can compete to win races on any night in any circumstance, whether it's with the All-Stars, unsanctioned races with the World of Outlaws, and some premier races like the Kings Royal and Knoxville National. So I'm pretty excited to see where it goes. I mean, there's so many cool little storylines within our season that are going to be fun to watch. Yeah, it really is. The All-Stars are kind of interesting. You're right in that some eras of the sport, it's very, very deep. And then we had like the Dale Blaney era where it was, Dale and two other guys traveling around the country. Yeah. And now you're back to depth again. And it's absolutely amazing and really cool stuff. Blake, as an announcer, I love going to new places and adding new tracks to my resume, if you will. Have you done any of these tracks? Is this something that's got you? You talk about being a stats geek. Is this something that has you geeked up to go announce at new racetracks? Absolutely. I was actually looking last night, and all 9 of these racetracks are new racetracks for me that we're going to. So that's exciting. Our third race will be the 100th different racetrack I've announced at. I was going through and counting. I'm at 97, so I'll check that off. I'll cross off my 150 different racetracks. So some little milestones within this trip that, I mean, for me, I'm a little bit excited for from that standpoint. That's awesome.
That's really neat. Blake, I'm the non-announcer of this group here. When you haven't announced in months, do you get butterflies? Is it a little weird that first time? I mean, I know as a driver, if you didn't race for a few months, you certainly had more butterflies getting back in the car.
I mean, I do. I'm a nervous freak. I'm a little bit nervous. I pace a lot. So for me, like when I announce sitting down, it's kind of tough for me. I get nervous, but I'm amped up to get back into it. As you said, as a driver, you get a little bit nervous where, I mean, I can't speak for Postman. I'm sure he's probably the same. You got to find your rhythm again. And it's tough when you've been out of it I haven't announced a race since the first week of March now. Yeah, no, it is. It's been fun to get back with MRN and doing a turn there with MRN, and I'm actually going to Fayetteville for some 305 races. Going to do some pay-per-view and announcing this week, so it's going to be fun. But you're right, and I'm the same way. I'm not a sit-down guy. I'm a stand-up and move around guy, and I can't contain myself sitting down and watching a race. That's for sure. Well, Blake, I'm telling you, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you. We appreciate the time. We wish you safe travels and have fun over this course. We'll be following along on Flow Racing. All of the races are on Flow Racing, so we'll be following along, and we wish you and all the All-Stars all the best over the course of these next few weeks. Well, thanks for having us, guys. I appreciate it, and we certainly appreciate the coverage you guys not only provide the All-Stars, but the sport as a whole. And it's a little disappointing to me, Steve. This weekend we were supposed to be having you guys up at Port Royal this weekend for the Weikert, but we'll do it over Zoom, and hopefully we can get back to that sooner rather than later. You had to bring up Port Royal and the Weikert Memorial. Oh, breaking my heart here. Mine too. What a fun event it is. Well, Blake, the final thing is my producer, Craig, wanted to tell you goodbye. Yeah, he said, hey, we'll be 15 minutes. I said, sounds good, goodbye. I didn't mean to put goodbye. I was texting and driving. I know, tisk, but Yeah, tell Craig goodbye.
There we go. We appreciate you joining us. Thanks for the time.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.
There we go. That's Blake Anderson joining us here on Wing Nation. Stay with us. More in just a moment.
Pride. Passion.
Performance.
We are
Team Drydene.
Power isn't born, it's built over time. For over 65 years, Hercules Tires has been providing the muscle to move more drivers. Whatever the vehicle, whatever the terrain, and we back it with a powerful protection plan. So wherever the road or the trail takes you, we have the selection, value, and strength to get you there. Hercules Tires. Ride on our strength.
It is Wing Nation, presented by Drydene, by DRF Racing Oils, and by Hercules Tires. We are glad you joined us. Okay, time is running out. We've warned you. You have waited until the last minute. Shame, but you still have time. Through this weekend, the Hercules Tire Spring Rebate is going on. Yes, you can get $70 in Visa gift cards with a qualifying purchase of 4 Hercules Tires. Go to HerculesTires.com/spring rebate. They even have, I was just looking at it this week, they even have a store locator and a tire size locator. So you don't have to mess around. You can go to the store and say, I need this, and get it qualified to get in on the spring rebate. So, yeah. So while you're getting your Hercules Tires put on your vehicle this weekend, Erin, we are going to need, okay, now our producer, Kreger, does the event schedule with all of the pay-per-views. Kreger's going to have to get busy here again. He's been laying around with one race here and one race there. We're getting ready to see a bunch of sprint car racing, if not in person, at least via pay-per-view. A lot on the calendar coming up now.
There is a lot on the calendar, and with all this social distancing, I'm going to need a lot of devices. I have the iPad and the laptop, but I'm going to need more to keep track of all these races. I know it's going to be
reminiscent of some hotel nights back on the road during the NASCAR day when all of it's going on. World of Outlaws, their upcoming schedule for the next few weeks. And again, we qualify everything we say here when it comes to upcoming schedules to say, check in with your local track, check in with your sanctioning body, because this thing is moving. It might move between now and this thing getting put up onto the World Wide Web. World of Outlaws, Lake Ozark Speedway this weekend. We talked to Kyle Larson. He's all fired up about that. Going to be out there racing this weekend. We talked to him on Tuesday. I love this one. Our friends up at Hefner Racing Products are all excited about this, I'm sure, because Beaver Dam is just down the road from their spot. And so next weekend is Beaver Dam. And then back at Knoxville, June 12th through the 13th, the Brunel's Big Gun Bash. So World of Outlaws are working with limited audiences in some places, still no audiences in other places. But Erin, it's good to have, knowing every weekend we've got some World of Outlaw racing. It really is, and like we've talked about every week, yeah, it's not great to race with no fans in the stands, but these are steps. Now we're seeing some fans, so we're making progress. That's all I can say. Progress for sure. The All-Star Circuit. Have live racing to watch. Yes, we do. You're absolutely right about that. The Ollie's Bargain Outlet All-Star Circuit of Champions this weekend at Park Jefferson Speedway. That's where Blake Anderson was headed when we chatted with him. Coming up, Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, Louisiana, between the 4th and the 14th of June. I don't know what they're calling it other than thank God we're back racing again. But the All-Stars are going to be busy. How about this? Pennsylvania, Sealands Grove, and Lincoln are slated to run this weekend. So 2 nights of racing up in Posse Land. That ought to get the Beer Hill gang all fired up. Oh, yeah. Let's just keep hoping that's going the right direction. It looked like Lincoln was successful, so hopefully the governor was pleased. Yep. Our buddy, I mentioned this earlier, Pete Walton, he has his first Speed Week coming up this weekend. down in Arkansas, the old number one speedway, Riverside International, West Memphis, Lexington Speedway. But stay tuned. I'm telling you, you want to talk about a guy that'll put a Speed Weeks together. This is just weekend one. It might be Speed Month by the time he gets done, but USCS is racing. I love this one too. Patriot Sprints. They are scheduled to go on June 17th, a Wednesday night, up at Canandaigua Speedway. Had the chance, Erin, was up there on some MRN business, and had the chance to meet, and I've got total brain fade, the guy the new guy that runs Canandaigua Speedway, and he's got a little independent streak in him. I get that, and so they're going back racing soon. And what they're doing is he's doing his own pay-per-view. And that way he just owns the whole thing. He's invested in all the equipment, everything. And in this way, if he can have an audience, he gets all of their money. If he doesn't have an audience, he gets all of their pay-per-view. And so Patriots are going to be rack racing. So kind of neat to see how that's involved with some of these tracks as well.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with New York State. I mean, New York, obviously, with New York City, they've been really strict. So it's nice to see some racing back where I cut my teeth.
There you go. Absolutely. Land of Legends Raceway in Canandaigua in mid-June. I'm actually excited about this because this weekend, our friends, and we've talked to the McLean boys on Wing Nation on MAV TV, and yes, we don't talk a lot about 305 racing, and a lot of times when we do, it's here in Carolina because, well, I'm a homer for these guys, and I think they do a wonderful job. Carolina Sprint Tours at Fayetteville Motor Speedway this weekend for Friday and Saturday night. Now, what they're doing is, and this thing, because of shutdowns in other states, they end up with over 50 305 sprint cars from more than 50 cars from 9 different states. And so this has turned into quite the little shindig out there. It initially was a back gate only show, but with the changes here in North Carolina, now Fayetteville's going to open up the front gate, and so it's going to be a fan show, and we're going to see what a healthy 305 sprint car show will draw here in late model country over at Fayetteville. My bets are going to be pretty good with it because we got some good racers coming there this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we always talk about, there's more and more of us sprint car fans and people down here in the Carolinas.
Yeah, they are. I'm actually doing something, and to selfishly promote what I'm doing, I don't believe I've ever done a pay-per-view race. I've done races where I've announced where it's been captured, but I'm actually, it's a buddy of mine, Tony Stevens, Pit Road TV, and it's going to be available at imca.com or speedsport.com. And so I'm looking forward to seeing some sprint car racing and doing a little pay-per-view. And I'll make sure that Kreger in that long list of pay-per-views has that one added on there. So if you choose to do that, you can link in and see some 305 racing here in the Carolinas. Our friends at ASCS still waiting for the national tour to fire back off. But the American Bank of Oklahoma, ASCS Sooner Region, they've got a pair of races this weekend. Friday night, Red Dirt Raceway in Meeker, Oklahoma. Saturday, Tri-State Speedway in Pacola, Oklahoma. Also the ASCS Mid-South. I'll tell you what, you want to think about talking about chopping at the bit. I bet you Emmett Hahn is ready to see some ASCS racing.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, with all his regional racing and the national tour, he doesn't like to sit still very long.
No, he doesn't. And I know Brian and everybody there is anxious to get started. And so, again, another one of those, ASCSracing.com. That's www.ascsracing.com. That is a fluid situation that is changing, that is moving all the time as of all of the racing situations. That is for sure. We'd like to invite you to check out wingnation.com for all of your apparel needs. You can check us out there. You can check us out for the pay-per-view broadcast schedule, latest news. All of the shows are on there. All of the shows are on YouTube. We are on Twitter. We're on Facebook with a group and a page and all kinds of fun stuff. And Erin, we're getting closer and closer to more and more racing, and it's starting to feel a little bit like normal. And it was cool hanging out with Blake Anderson and good to chat sprint car racing this week.
It really was. I look forward to catching all of these all-star races coming up. I mean, there's going to be plenty for us to watch now. We went from dreaming of it to now every night we'll have something to watch pretty much.
Here's the other thing, Erin. They're not all on the West Coast either, so us that can't make it till late night, we might even be able to see some races.
I'm not going to lie. Even the Midwest, I struggle sometimes. There's been a few where I've woke up and I hear Johnny Gibson yelling the finish. I'm like, oh, all right.
I know. I've been there. My latest one was listening to the radio for the Coca-Cola 600. Of course, they had the rain delay, and that pushed it back. And I happened to catch the full field rundown sometime in the middle of the night at the end. I'm like, well, I'm glad I caught that and know that Brad Keselowski put that forward in victory lane. So it is. I'm with you too. I'm not a late nighter anymore. That's for sure. So it's all good. Well, I'll tell you what. Again, it's got a blast hanging out with Blake Anderson coming up this Saturday on Wing Nation, presented by Sage Fruit on MAV TV. Brad Doty is in the house. Always good to talk to the Hall of Famer and one of the sport's greatest ambassadors. Ashley Stremme and I will do that Saturday morning at 7:30 and 10:30 Eastern Time on MAV TV. For Erin Evernham, I'm Steve Post. Thanks for joining us here today on Wing Nation.
This has been the Wing Nation Podcast. Find Wing Nation on wingnation.com, Facebook, YouTube, or your favorite podcast provider. The Wing Nation Podcast is a production of the Motor Racing Network. All rights reserved.